So, hello, my friends, and welcome to What's Up. What's Up is a half an hour deep dive, unstructured, unpredictable kind of conversation that Greg Braden and I carry on every couple of weeks. And we're happy to have you with us today. And I'm happy to have Greg here. It's hard to have a conversation with yourself. So, it's nice to have you here. Greg, how are you?
John, I am doing awesome. I'm coming to you from our studios here in Santa Fe. Beautiful late spring day. We had snow 2 days ago, and it's like
Mhm.
summer now. So I'm happy to see the sun. Happy for this conversation today.
Yeah. Likewise, yeah, it's a beautiful day here in the Appalachian Mountains of West Virginia. What's up, Greg? What have you been thinking about?
Oh, John, we could do weeks of programs on what I've been thinking about, but I think one thing that has really been on my mind the last couple of weeks. We did this a couple of weeks ago, and I'm really watching the the dance around what is called disclosure, disclosure of our relationship to life and technology from beyond this world. But it's taken a little bit of a twist, and that's what I'd love to have your take on this today. There is a growing body of evidence to suggest that disclosure has already happened in an unsuspected way through our religious texts. That, in
Hmm.
fact, when we read the Christian Bible, for example, what we are reading is an account of our relationship to otherworldly beings, what today we would call ETs. In the past, were called angels, archons, demons. It's all a matter of language that we're actually witnessing a story of the battle in heaven, the battle for dominion over earth and over us as a form of life on this earth. And what I'm seeing is that a growing number of websites are emerging where this is being explored, and it is having a really impactful, uh, deeply impactful result in religious communities. And it leads me to the question, this is what I want to talk to you. I'm wondering if we actually had full on disclosure. And by the way, I was just at an event recently, a live event, and we had a Q&A session, and somebody asked me, when is disclosure going to happen? And I had to ask them, what does that look like to you? Because it's already happening on so many levels. And so he said, the gentleman said, he expected full on disclosure to be when our relationship to life beyond this world is acknowledged on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, mainstream, and we've got ETs walking down the street to Starbucks with everybody else. That to him that was disclosure. So my question is, because of the movement to rewrite or reinterpret our most ancient and cherished religious texts, I'm wondering if disclosure and religion are compatible. What do you think about that, John?
I think that religions are temporal kind of constructs to and historical constructs to try to make sense out of what otherwise would not make sense,
Mhm.
i.e., how does this reality work? What is our purpose in life, and so on? Is that and that the major religions um, are largely reflective or fundamentally reflective, if not largely, or fundamentally reflected by the culture and the times of their origins. And so the protagonists of of the major religions were looking through this grid. They were looking through this lens of their own cultures and their own times. And so when you generated ideas about God, I mean, that was the best idea that they could come up with about what was going on because it was so superior to anything that they could make any kind of sense out of. It was compatible with the mindset and the perspectives. It allowed for it, and it worked within the social structures and so on. It seems to me that raising a consciousness, expanded awareness. And I don't think that you can hang on to the past in science or society or any of the things, technology, transportation, you name it. You need something that's here, and the new ideas by definition displace the old ones.
So the evidence, the archaeological evidence, the new, more accurate translations of the original texts, the release of texts that have been kept secret, kept veiled for centuries. Those three things are telling a new story. It doesn't change the events that occurred. It changes the interpretation and what we are saying about those events. So, for example, it doesn't change the fact that a man named Jesus of Nazareth walked the earth, who was a very learned man, and instilled a deep sense of value and worth within each human that he spoke with. What the Gnostic texts, for example, they acknowledge that, but this is where it gets really interesting. The Gnostic texts make a distinction between what they call the God described in the Old Testament and the God, the man that Jesus identifies as his heavenly Father, two very, very different entities. And this is why so many of those texts were edited, they were suppressed, because it was advantageous to the power structures at the time that those gods be one and the same. So that's my question. It doesn't change the events, but does religion survive if we had full-on disclosure and we know that the angels are actually ETs, they're beings from another world, and that there are different classes of beings from other worlds. Some of them are benevolent, some of them are very dark, some of them want our best interests, some of them don't.
Yeah, religion is only one of the things that is threatened by disclosure. History, science,
Exactly.
technology, all this, I've always been interested in it because it doesn't take much in looking at it to say, God, if this stuff shows up the way it's likely to, it just pulls the pins on all of the fabric that supports how human, who they think they are, and how we operate, and how things operate. I mean, it's huge, and so religion is only one of many other things.
Who do you trust? When you no longer trust government, and you no longer trust the pharmaceutical industry, and you no longer trust financial experts, and you no longer trust, your own local authorities, and everybody's turned to religion, and if religion's falling apart as well, where does that leave everyone? I think it's also an opportunity for us to rethink our relationship to the cosmos, our relationship to time, and to ourselves and to higher powers.
Religion is essentially an attempt from the outside to try to make sense out of this reality. And so you don't need governments as we understand it. You don't need religions. You don't need all of these institutions that are built up around to kind of tell you how this works. It's fascinating because it's hard to walk into that space because you're so used to looking outside to authority for confirmation of your ideas or your thoughts or some other things. And I think that the essence of all of this is to reestablish, or establish, I guess, this notion of that you can find the answers to almost to anything within yourself, and without having to go out and ask somebody who's got a PhD or preaches on Sunday or Saturday or whenever the day is, or any of those kinds of things. That And if that happens, if you find that space, then you're a really different person. I mean, just really different person, because you operate in this world and in this space in a sense of independence and freedom that anybody that's goes to that's tied up in a religion, certain by definition doesn't, because they think that's all important, and that is.
I think this is what, when you begin opening the door to a deeper understanding of our relationship with the cosmos, with higher powers, from what we're talking about now. And the evidence is emerging. I mean, not just obscure texts are being revealed, but archaeological sites now are beginning to fill in missing pieces. I don't know if you've been following this. You know, a lot of religious stories were believed to be fairy tales. Um, Even the city of Troy was believed to be a fairy tale until an archaeologist named was Heinrich Schliemann. One day he just asked a question. He said, "What if this isn't a fairy tale? What if I actually went to this place? And what if we put our shovels in the ground and dug here? What we find?" He found the city of Troy, and Troy became historic fact. Well, the same thing has happened recently. Recently, I say 2002, 2003, German archaeologists went to a city in Iraq where they have always believed the fairy tale of Gilgamesh and the epic of Gilgamesh was said to have happened. They began excavating and they found what they believed was the tomb of Gilgamesh. Uh, and in that tomb is believed to have been the body of Gilgamesh. Well, this is important because in the historic text, Gilgamesh was not a pure human. He
Right.
was a hybrid between a higher intelligence that we call now Anunnaki, if that's the term that we want
Right.
to use. Interestingly, that archaeological site, the US invaded Iraq exactly during that time. They shut down, actually, they took over the archaeological site. The excavators are relieved of their duties. And now it's all been, you're very hard pressed to find any information about what actually happened. But it shows that Gilgamesh is not a fairy tale, that the city was there. The tomb was, they said, the texts say the tomb was buried under the Euphrates, and a part of the Euphrates now has receded, and there's the tomb, just as it was in the text. So it's another example of where a fairy tale becomes real. Well, this particular fairy tale is about our relationship to life beyond this world and what we call ETs and hybrid relationships. So archaeological finds like that supporting what the texts are actually telling us. When you see a couple of them, they used to be called anomalies. And
Yeah.
what's happening now, John, is there's so many anomalies, they're telling a new story. The anomalies are now telling a new story. And my question is, whether or not, what does that mean to traditional conventional religion?
And if these historical religious frameworks are not going to give you the answers to those kinds of things, and particularly you think about what's going on in the Mideast right now, and so on, in the wars, and so many people getting killed, and so it's really easy, it seems to me, to kind of back your way away from the religious perspectives, because regardless of where you come to from, whatever kind of religious bent that you come from, it doesn't justify what's going on over there.
I think what we're seeing in terms of the historic nature of those documents, they've always said that there is a fundamental struggle in this world between forces of good and evil. And I think we see that playing out in the kinds of wars that we're seeing now, and the way that people treat one another, and the atrocities and things like that. Definitely, those are expressions of evil that we have seen.
I wonder whether this process, this basic paradigmatic shift, involves changes in some of these fundamentals, like what's good and what's bad, or what's evil or what's good, or so on. And that maybe, certainly, you could make the case that the historical perspectives and understanding or articulation, at least, of those ideas were all a product of, again, the culture and the times. And if there is maybe a different way to look at all of this, because there are some folks who are, who are suggesting that there is nothing that's good, there's nothing that's evil, nothing that's good. All of it is depends upon how you respond to it and how you what function it has in terms of allowing you to evolve yourself in some kind of way. And I don't know.
I can't support that one, John. And I want to tell you where I saw that was in the New Age movement and an attempt to make sense of what is seen in the world. This is where you go back to those original texts that were suppressed by the Vatican. Why would they put the time, the energy, and the money and risk the lives to suppress that kind of information? And this is maybe where we can close with this conversation. Because those forces are real. The forces of good and evil are real. They have many masks. There's technological evil, psychological evil, kinetic evil, different ways of looking at it. We talk about those in our books. But the definition of evil itself, it's a nebulous concept until you come back in this fundamental struggle between good and evil. The goal of the evil is to repress human potential, to deny us our potential to love, forgive, heal, empathy, sympathy, compassion. So anything that we see that denies us the deepest truth and the greatest expressions of our humanness, we can say that is an expression of evil, and then we can choose accordingly. But I also think it's really important. Deception is so prevalent. It doesn't mean that every person that performs the evil is an evil person. They're performing evil acts, many of them that don't even know it. And I think this is true of elected officials. It's true of unelected officials. It's true of agencies, governments, corporations. If they have a propensity for greed or they have a propensity for control, they will easily succumb to places where they're able to express those. They are expressions of evil, but I don't even think they are aware that most of them, some of them are, but most of them are not even aware that they're supporting.
I think they've been conditioned. Lots of kind of inputs that have trained them to see the world in those kinds of terms. Well, we'll come back and talk about this next time, I guess.
Okay.
So thank you very much. Always fun to talk to you.
Thank you, John.
For those of you who are watching, What's Up comes to you from the Arlington Institute, the little think tank that we started about 35 years ago that's now located in Berkeley Springs, a little resort town in West Virginia, about 100 miles from Washington and Baltimore. We have a variety of projects and programs that are all oriented toward trying to make sense out of this extraordinary kind of change that we're living through. You can find out more information about that at arlingtoninstitute.org. And we hope you'll go there and join us, become a member, and we'll keep you informed about all the different kind of things that we're doing. So thanks, Gregg. Nice to see you again. Always be well.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much, John. I always appreciate our conversation. I am going to be at Arlington Institute for a transitions talk within just a few weeks. I look forward to seeing you all there.